All right, next we have two very, very special guests. First, I'd like to call Mr. Kraus on the stage. Franz Kraus is the managing director of ARRI and really the architect behind the Alexa camera. Mr. Kraus. And our second guest was born in England. He studied graphics design there before he became a documentary cameraman for 7 years, when, luckily for all of us, he switched to feature films. Since then, he's worked on a myriad of feature films, lots of successful, lots of beautiful classics, like Barton Fink, Kundun, The Man Who Wasn't There, The Shawshank Redemption, my daughter's favorite, by the way, The Reader, True Grit, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, No Country for Old Men. He has received numerous awards for his work, including the 2011 American Society of Cinematographers Lifetime Achievement Award. And throughout his career, he was always very interested in teaching and very generously sharing his knowledge, which he continues to do right now on his website, www.rogerdeakins.com. Roger Deakins, please come up on the stage.
So, thank you, Roger, for joining this afternoon. You have done in the past 55 plus feature films.
In the 50s, yeah.
Yeah, and only 2 of them lately have been digital, and on those you selected our Alexa camera. You are not that much known to be looking in each and every technology, but you are known that you are looking in technologies which can produce new things which had not been possible. You have been early user of the DI for Oh Brother, Where Aren't You? Can you explain why it took quite some time to look into digital capture and what the reasons had been to use it for those pictures you made, and obviously for Bond? It's the first digital Bond which was shot, and there may have been debates about why to choose if it was successful for so many years. Filming on 35 now.
Yeah, there was a little pushback because it was new to them, but in my choice, I mean, I've basically been keeping up with technology all the way through. I mean, I will sound like a salesman now, but this was the first digital camera I came across that I thought, yeah, this is, you know, the technology was getting to a point, and this was, for me, the Alexa was the one that's, you know, crossed the knife edge, and we're into a new world now with that technology. But I did a lot of tests with a prototype camera and did side-by-side comparisons with film. And then it was, we did ProRes and uncompressed HD. And it was just, the first film I used it on was In Time. And the thing about that film, it was a fairly low-budget film, but we had a huge amount of night exterior. So I knew I needed a camera with some speed and versatility. And that kind of pushed me towards it. But I think in terms of my kind of technological development, I think it's what you said. When I started doing DIs, like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou was, I think, one of the first major, probably Hollywood film done with a full, complete DI finish. I was very aware. I mean, I'd done, I don't know, 10 films DI-wise after that. Every film I shot, I think, we finished on a DI set for The Man Who Wasn't There. But when it came to thinking about shooting In Time, I was very aware that taking the digital file through a digital intermediary, I had a lot more flexibility. The image somehow I don't do a lot in a DI. I mean, I did a lot on Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, but usually I don't do a lot. I change contrast, I change saturation, and maybe I do a few windows on a few highlights and stuff. But I was aware that there is so much more latitude from the file from the Alexa, even, you know, as opposed to a 4K scan of a film negative. That was my take. So when I was approached about In Time, the director and we were thinking about shooting film, but I'd done all these tests, and I showed Andrew the tests, and I said, well, what do you think? And it was a particular film with a lot of low-light stuff, but it was also a futuristic science fiction, and we wanted the feeling of one aspect of the story to look very kind of clinical and crisp. So the balance between, the camera having that beautiful clarity and on the other hand having the speed to do this very low light night work. So that really kind of swayed me to shoot with a camera for that film. And then just my experience on In Time, just when I was approached about doing Bomb with Sam, I thought we would shoot film, and then I said to Sam, well, you should just look at what I did on In Time and should look at the tests. And I said, just look at one thing in the tests, and that's the actor's eyes. Because I think the one thing that really persuaded him was the clarity of the actor's eyes compared with film. There's just a sort of snap that you don't get on film, to my eye anyway. So.
Thank you very much. You explained, I think, a lot of reasons which made you change to digital, to the Alexa. Are you also finding that there had been many adoptions being made to change from a media you have learned and mastered for so many years and then go into a digital media? And the next question would be, are there, beside of the higher speed, the lack of artifacts coming from film, are there attributes which you prefer on digital rather than on film? And on the other hand side, are there shots where you still would see film as the superior medium?
To say one's superior than the other, they're just different. It's a different tool, you know what I mean? I mean, I still love film. I mean, as you say, I shot 50-odd movies on film emulsion. I love the look of film. And I think partly the reason I'm changing now is it's the future. I mean, you hear film might not be made very shortly, so, I mean, it's a done deal, really, so I want to be in a place where I feel comfortable shooting digital. I was surprised, actually, that the changeover was so simple. I think I was slightly feared of shooting digital, and maybe that's why. No, that's not why I kept shooting film, because there wasn't a camera that persuaded me previous to the Alexa. But when we started shooting In Time, the only thing that threw me was I didn't hear the mag rolling. I didn't hear the film going through the coaxial mag. So I used to shoot with a 535 rather than the new ARRI. And you always, in the coaxial mag, you always hear that sound of the film going through. And I missed that. I keep asking Andy, my assistant, to get a little tape or something so he can play that thing. But it's funny, because coming from film, you used to like putting filters on the front of the camera, etc., etc. And it was just noticed on shooting Skyfall, I was just thinking, watching all this, watching the LED presentation, the light presentation, I thought, well, yeah, you can change the colors. And I was looking at the light in the conference room there. It's a fantastic piece of technology, but I didn't realize on Skyfall, of course, you can change the color temperature on the Alexa. And I didn't really get hold of that aspect of it on In Time, but in Skyfall I was doing it all the time. I was always changing the color temperature in the camera, which was a great trick. And like we've talked, the one thing that I find is a struggle, because you've got an 800 ASA camera, you've got a very fast camera. If you shoot in a very bright light and you really want a shallow depth of field, that's really difficult. You start stacking NDs on the front. And I've always shot, I hardly ever use filters when I've shot films. I've always shot on a tungsten balanced stock because I think it's a nicer stock, but I've often shot like Shawshank and stuff. I've shot tungsten balanced stock, but I've never corrected it. I've just corrected it in the lab where I wanted it. Because I like shooting with a lens with nothing in front. So now having a camera and having to stack NDs on, especially on a bright day when you're getting all this light coming into the lens and softening the image, that's difficult to get used to.
There's some engineering
tasks
still open.
Yeah.
Yes. Is there for you some kind of film texture and digital texture? There's a lot being told it's different tools, it's a different technology, and it offers a different texture. How would you respond on that?
Yeah, well, again, when we did some early tests, we went through a DI with the film image and an image of the Alexa, and then to match the film, we had to kind of add grain, obviously, and actually put it slightly out of focus. But once we'd done that, if you took the boards off, the identification off, I couldn't tell which was which. And I mean, I think that says enough, really. I mean, you can get there with that image, but you can take it other places as well. I do love grain. I mean, a lot of the films I've shot, I've actually manipulated the emulsion, the negative, to get more grain and change the image and, screw it around, really, make it look, give it a texture. But I think, since having started doing a DI on Oh Brother, I mean, you can add grain. There's programs now to add grain that are kind of fairly random, movement on them. And I think, to me, to have that option, that's the way to go. I mean, we thought about adding grain on in time, because some of the scenes are meant to be in this kind of grotty ghetto area. But I felt, just shooting in low light and the way I kind of like, I thought it was fine as it was. We didn't add grain. And again, I thought about adding grain. I mean, we've not done a finished DI to Skyfall. The trailer's done separately. I was thinking of adding grain to the opening sequence, just to give it a kind of rawness. But I think, again, just the way we've shot it, it has it anyway. What drew me to the Alexa, really, rather than other digital cameras that will remain nameless, was the kind of the fall off. Between the height. One thing, the height is very hard to burn a highlight out if you're exposing it right with a camera, and there's an enormous amount of detail in the shadows. But the roll off between the two, I mean, most electronic cameras, to me, they've always had this sort of edge problem, but the Alexa doesn't. I haven't seen that at all. I mean, maybe once or twice if you get the exposure wrong on a bright day exterior, it'll suddenly look a bit too sharp and clean. But it's that kind of subtlety of image is what I like about an image, and I'm not comparing it with film. I'm just saying that's what I like. As far as texture, it's interesting standing really close there watching the screen, because there is a texture. Even on the NAB reel that came up, I was aware of that. There is a slight texture. There's a slight movement in the pixels. What you could say, what accounts for that? But and I kind of like that. But now when I go to the cinema and I see a film and I see the grain, I don't like it. I've seen some tests for the IMAX of Skyfall, the film on film, film projection, and even when the focus chart came up, it's kind of like moving with a grain. I don't like it. It's too much for me now. It's funny. I better not go and watch any of the movies I did before, because I probably won't like them.
In time, you shot in HD, uncompressed, recording on codecs, and Skyfall now in RAW, again recording on codecs. What differences have you found manipulating the images?
I don't think maybe there's a little bit more latitude manipulating it, but there is a slight snap if you look at them side by side. Again, it's the actor's eyes. Mm-hmm. You see the actor's eyes, and they've got a little bit more clarity. But I think you could intercut them without really worrying about it too much. I mean, we did all these tests with just ProRes, and I was quite intent on shooting some ProRes on Skyfall if I was doing handheld or some car shots over the M, like not with the M, but doing some grab shots. But I never did, because we never needed to. But I don't think there would be a problem intercutting them, really.